When the day begins, your thoughts are of the best intentions. How can you make this day the best it can be? You wonder, what will this day bring? Your family awaits you in the distance, coaxing you to run to them and join them in some early morning shenanigans. This is what families do. Off to the fields to dream of being an airplane pilot or an astronaut. Whatever you want to be, it's your imagination, and it can take you anywhere. Run to the lake to join everyone in a game of tag or hide and seek. Celebrate your victories, dancing around foolishly in celebration antics. Chase down your family at the beach, fling kites, feeling the ocean's breeze hit your face. Being a child is an amazing experience. There are many children who have had this experience taken away from them by CPS. They will never feel the attachment to family the way they should. They are being robbed of life's precious experiences, and people are allowed this. As the sun sets slowly, and so many are anticipating the new day with their family, there are so many others laying there wishing that they could be with their own families. This torture needs to be stopped. These children will wake up alone and fight the world by themselves instead of surrounded by the family God gave them. We must abolish CPS and stop neglecting children who once enjoyed living with a family of their own. Studies show we are destroying these children, not helping.
That's me in the very beginning. Now I am a baby and getting zoomed from my mom to my birthday. I don't remember a lot about my younger life, but I remember it was fun and I felt so safe. My mom and dad always happy. I guess my mom's sister was mad that my dad was so great, so she called the police and said he hit my mom. We were all reading and they came. I heard my dad yelling, "There's no way." My mom was crying loudly. Some lady took us away. The court said my parents abused and neglected us. They only loved us. The caseworker lied. I never saw my parents again. I'm still hoping one day they come. I am a victim of CPS and so are my parents. We need to find justice in all of this madness for all of us that are being abused. It's not fair. Every kid I know has a mom and dad. I know they miss me. I bet they fight every day for me to come home.
Don't get caught like us. Know your rights.
Our courts are contaminated with young, inexperienced caseworkers and polluted with bribes, high-priced bonuses for speedy adoption of terminated parents, and judges who don't practice law with the Constitution in their sights. This is a problem.
They take away the fathers, leaving just a mom and cubs. They know that with dad out the way, the better things will go. Breaking apart the family, destroying the American way. Our legacy is built upon our families of yesterday. Fuck CPS, fuck what they doing. Fuck CPS, they need to be ruined. It's all about the division of family services. You hear that the division is what they about. They prey upon the family, the ones that the dad's been kicked out. We can't stand for this abomination. This is the song that needs to play across our once great nation, making us aware of the problem. Stealing our kids, it's not mama drama. Stand up for those who are lost to them. We need to fight for the family, making America great again. CPS comes along with the mission to protect. The only thing they are doing is cashing in those checks, paid for by the souls of the children, diagnosed by a caseworker who is still a baby herself. They take away the fathers, leaving just the mom and cubs. They know that with dad out the way, the better things will go. Breaking apart the family, destroying the American way. Our legacy CPS, fuck what they doing. Fuck CPS, they need to be ruined. It's all about the division of family services. You hear the division, that's what they about. They prey upon the family, the ones that the dad's been kicked out. We can't stand for this abomination. This is the song that needs to play across our once great nation, making us aware of the problem, stealing our kids. It's not mama drama. Stand up for those who are lost to them. We need to fight for the family, making America great again.
All right, everybody, welcome to this Saturday night edition. Brought to you by DG Enterprises. I don't know, we don't even have a name for this, what we're doing right now. We're just having a little live show here with special guest Kim Page. I'm going to make this big here in a minute. Oh, right.
How you doing tonight?
Doing all right, Kim. How about yourself? Now you're
I'm
way
good.
up north, all right? You're in the cold somewhere? You're in just as cold as we are right up here in Maine.
Yep, I'm up north right now. Yes, from Alabama though.
Right, you are from Alabama. Yes, you are. Hey, you want to just give everybody a little bit of insight that don't know who you are, what you are, and what you do. I know I've talked you up last time and said that you know everything, which is true. But if you would just give everybody like a little bit of your experience, then we can go from there.
Well, as you said, I'm Kim Page. I have been advocating for parents since about late 2019. What I do specifically is educate parents on how to represent themselves in court. If they have an attorney and they're okay with having an attorney, or they feel like they don't have the ability to represent themselves, I help them know how to, or help them be able to make sure their attorney actually works for them, so that they don't end up losing their kids because their attorney is a lazy jackass. Help them locate services they need from a provider that is not tied in to CPS. Help them be able to, get their home the way that CPS would demand it be. Whatever aspect of the case is needed, even whether it's just being there to hold their hand when they're in court or translate all the legal jargon. That's what I do. Whatever a parent needs, that's what I do. I am currently in law school. Once I graduate, I will be practicing in the area of family law. I do have the intent of actually getting ABA certified so that I can practice in the federal courts, and hopefully we can get some of these federal laws changed.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So you basically get yourself in line with the family, and do you go through this are you in there as detailed as they want you to be, or as far away as they want you to be? Like you kind of pick and choose, they pick and choose what role they want you to play?
I mean, it really depends on what the parent needs. If it's a situation that I have the ability to go to them and physically be present to help them, I will. That's actually why I am up north right now, because I came to assist with the case. It was actually a so-called Child Protective Services advocate that I came up here to help. And it turned out that this advocate lied about every aspect of her case when she told me and when she told the parents that she advocates for. And in being up here, things have come to light, and I have found that in my assisting this advocate with her case, I have caused harm to the children. I have caused harm to her ex, and that's not who I am. So I'm staying up here until I help the other parent, until I fix the case, until I fix what I screwed up. I'm here. I'm here on my own dime. and I will continue to be here on my own dime until I fix what I messed up. I messed this up because I was given bad information from a narcissist.
Oh, sorry. Of course. So you're saying that you went up there and you were trying to do all the good in the world and all your good intentions, and then once you got digging into it, you found out that the story that you have been getting told was a little bit full of BS and that you were in the wrong. Basically, what you're saying. Now, does that happen a lot? Do you hear a lot? Do you hear a lot of stories about that? Do you hear a lot of people telling you one thing, or do you get to hear that from a lot of people? Do you hear a lot of people say, "Hey, look, this is what's happened to me. Blah blah blah. Come up here and be with me," and then you get there and you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! This isn't what's happening."
I do hear a lot of that with parents. Yes. More with advocates. Because advocates, one of the things that a lot of advocates do is they're in this for the notoriety, and they're in this for whatever money they can get off of parents. I never charge parents a dime, not a single penny. I've had parents try to give me gas cards to drive to them, or give me a little bit of money to be able to help me pay for my hotel or whatever situation.
Right.
I won't take it. That's not what I'm in this for. I'm in this to keep children from being abused. But we have other advocates that will charge, that will ask parents for donations for their foundation to keep it running. I have my own advocacy group in Alabama, and it's called Parents Helping Children. I've got 3 other parents that actually advocate with me, and not a single one of us charge money, and not a single one of us have ever asked for a penny from anybody to pay this stuff. We just go out there and get an extra job, get a second job, do Lyft, do Instacart, do DoorDash, so that we can pay for it.
What's the name of your foundation?
Parents Helping Children. It is specific to Alabama because that is the area that I am most familiar with law. And as we know, every state has their own laws. Some are very similar to each other, and others are completely different. So I specifically advocate for Alabama with that particular group, and the advocates that I work with, they advocate specifically for Alabama as well. However, because I do have a very good understanding of the law, it is not very difficult for me to go to another state and quickly be acclimated to how things work in that state as well.
Right. I mean, do you find that I know that all the laws are different in each state, but there's a lot of similarities also, correct?
Correct.
So it's easy to kind of just jump from state to state and know that what are some common things that you would say are pretty standard?
Well, the biggest thing is every state, every single state, whether it's California, Maine, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Minnesota, Wisconsin, whatever, every single state has almost identical ways of practice, how things have to be filed, how things, specific motions that have to be raised in court, how they have to be raised in court, the specific procedures of how court functions across the board is about 98% identical. There's only 2 states that I've seen that have anything that are extremely drastic, and those states I try to stay away from because those laws are more, they mirror England's laws, and they're very difficult to understand. It's almost like, we know a lot of this is based in Latin, a lot of the terminology is based in Latin, but it's almost like the whole procedural process is completely different language. And that's Virginia and Maine. Virginia and Maine are the 2 that have the most difficult, most difficult to understand. So I will help parents.
I don't even think Maine understands their own laws.
I don't think they do either. So if I have a parent from those states, I will translate for them. I will help them hold their attorney accountable. I will help them find services, but I do not do a whole lot of helping them represent themselves in those states because of the severe differences.
Well, I'm going to bring out my boy Vinny here. Gunner stepped out here, but Vinny's going to join us too. Vinny's also a fellow Mainer. You met Vinny. You know Vinny from the past, or not from the past, from earlier. But so Vinny, we're talking about advocates, and we're talking about, we're talking about what they should, shouldn't, and so on. You know, like what you should recognize. Kim, what are some key points that you should recognize to know that your advocate is going to take you to the cleaners and not help you out with the case?
So the first thing that I want to say is that there are advocates out there who are just really interested in kicking CPS's ass. So they are going to do anything and everything that they have to be able to help you with your case, because it satisfies their goal, their main goal, which is kicking CPS's ass. So just because we have advocates out there that are scammers, that are slimy pieces of garbage, doesn't mean that all of them are. One of the biggest things is if an advocate asks you for money, they are not going to do what you need them to do. Most likely they are not going to do what you need them to do, unless you can find independently somebody that's dealt with them in the past who says, yes, I gave them XYZ amount of money and they helped me. Then and only then can you be 100% sure. You don't want to take any referrals from them, because they're going to say, yeah, contact my friend who's going to lie for me. Right. One of the other things is, if you are given advice by this advocate and you try to Google anything they say and it doesn't make any sense, they likely don't know what they're talking about.
Now, Kim, I got to ask you, what's your take on Opega?
Say that one more time, Vinny. What's my take on what?
Opega.
You sound really muffled.
Yeah, you're very muffled, Vinny.
Opega.
Opega. I don't think I've heard that term.
Yeah, what is Opega, Vinny? You pulling out of the jackpot box?
That's what Tully has been talking about on his post.
Okay.
You know, the attorney there?
Yeah.
He's been talking about that on his post.
Okay, so why don't you enlighten us? What's Opega? Oh, the Office Program of Evaluation and Government Accountability.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's better.
Okay. So that's the thing. That's something that happens in Maine. So Vinny, before you got on, we were actually talking about I advocate in almost every state. The two states that I try to stay away from are Maine and Virginia, because of the weird way that their policies and procedures are. Almost every other state has identical policies and procedures. Maine and Virginia are so fucking back-assward that you would almost have to go to law school a second time to be able to understand what's going on there. So the things that are happening specific to Maine, I would have to do some research before I could answer any questions. And that's the other thing. That's the other thing about an advocate. If the advocate tells you that they know everything, if they're not willing to admit they don't know something and they would have to look into it, that's a huge red flag. A huge red flag.
Or guaranteeing a win.
Do what?
Like guaranteeing a win also, you know, like
yes,
I will get you your kid back.
Yes. So Vinny, one of the things that we were talking about a minute ago is we were basically talking about the what an advocate does and how to identify a scam advocate, a sham advocate. And one of the things that we were talking about is I'm actually in up north right now. I'm from Alabama, and I actually came up north to assist with a case with somebody who touts themselves as an advocate. And this was their case, their personal case. And I came to this state to help them with their personal case. And it turns out that every single thing that they told me, they said that their ex abused them, their ex abused the children, their ex kept them from being able to have anything to do with their children for 5 years. And it turns out that that's not what the ex did. That's actually what she did to the ex and to the children. Except for the not being able to see the kids for 5 years. Actually, what happened was a restraining order was placed against her. And as part of the restraining order, she was only allowed to see the children supervised. And she was supposed to pay the money to the supervision company for the supervised visits. She refused to pay for it, said that her ex should have to pay for it. Now, these children were actually adopted out of foster care. They're all special needs kids. They were adopted out of foster care, so they get an adoption subsidy payment. Now, these kids, here's the thing with this one. We all have a problem with people adopting out of foster care. These kids, their parents actually wanted this couple to adopt the children. This was not a bad situation. This wasn't. These kids were on meth. I mean, their parents were on meth. They were on some sort of drug, and the parents says, we can't do this. We recognize that we can't do this. So the ones that are able to still have something to do with their kids, they still have something to do with their kids. So the parent, who is the advocate, she was ordered to pay for visitation supervision, and she refused to pay for it. She said that the ex that actually had possession of the kids was the one that should be paying for it. The money that she has is the money from the adoption subsidy. They adopted 10 special needs children out of foster care. And the advocate expected the ex to pay for her to have visitation with her children. And when she didn't, the advocate bashed her to everybody that would listen. And once I got up here and I started spending some time up here, I was here less than a month, and realized that the story that I was being told was not true. So what I've done is I've actually been helping this advocate for about 3 years with her case. And because of the help that I'd given her, it caused some serious issues for the ex and the children. So what I've done is, even though I could just walk away from this case, I can't do that. I cause problems for children and their mother, and I can't be okay with that. So I'm staying up here on my own dime until everything that I did is fixed.
10 special needs kids. What kind of a paycheck does that yield?
Gunner's back, by the way. Gunner.
Okay. Bring Gunner in here. Have you met Gunner
the children? No, I haven't met Gunner. I've seen him on the show a couple of times, but I haven't met him yet.
Okay.
The kids they have are special needs, anything from fetal alcohol syndrome to oppositional defiance disorder, ADD, ADHD, other learning disabilities.
Right. But and obviously these aren't all their kids, right?
No.
So,
There's 11 children in the home. One of them is biologically related to the mother.
Right.
None of them are biologically related to the advocate.
Well, guys, here's Gunner. Gunner, Kim Gunner.
Been listening in. Hello, Miss Kim. Welcome.
Hey, Gunner. How are you?
Oh, just pissing everybody off. Banned from TikTok again. Nothing. I have been banned 4 times now. Tried new ghost accounts 2 different ways, this and that. So obviously I'm on some. I've made the watch list, obviously, for basically just revealing the truth and showing the mass corruption of everything that's on there. Just trying to educate people where, this stuff under our Constitution is not even legally or even constitutionally allowed to be done.
Right.
States well insulated themselves under states' rights and sovereignty over making their decision, but at the same time, they're stepping on people's constitutional rights. One thing I would recommend as I'm listening to you, the first question I would ask is, doing anything or helping anybody with it or advocating is, number one, and we can share some of this stuff with you, is one, did they come into your home? Did they have a warrant or a court order or an emergency? Because if they didn't, we now have a 4th Amendment violation and a fruit from the poisonous tree. So if just by entering you have committed a crime, that is a change of jurisdiction form to a federal courtroom, which automatically says they'll give you those rulings, especially if you type it up just right. to actually rule and tie them there. And once you do that, we've come to find out too that the DOJ and the FBI, they don't work. They're lazy in some aspects, and until you file a federal civil suit, they won't do a damn thing. To basically, you do the work for them. So
Jim,
they'll take your evidence from your civil case and actually open a criminal case.
Jim,
Right.
how much do you get involved with legally in these cases with these people where you're not a lawyer, you're just an advocate? How much like legal advice and legal information is passed through the advocate to their attorney or so on and so forth? Like what's the standard measure? What is how does that work? Because most people are represented by an attorney. But
Right.
they have you swinging on the other side, or like people like Gunner, like they're sitting there like, hey guys, how much are you involved in the legal decision making with these cases?
Well, so practicing law without a license is actually a felony. And as much as I love the parents that I help, and as much as I love these children, I'm not going to prison, because sitting in prison, I'm not going to be able to advocate anymore. So I don't represent anybody, and I don't give legal advice. What I do is I translate legal terminology. I translate everything for the parents for them to understand, and I give them the tools for them to be able to know how to help themselves. One of the things that I do tell them at the very beginning of this is the information that I have is all self-taught. I'm an autodidact. That means that I've taught myself to the terms of a college level. So everything that I'm telling you is stuff that I have found through my own research. I can tell you what I have found. I can tell you what I think based on what I've read, but I cannot give you advice as a legal professional. I can give you advice as my friend. I can give you advice as a confidant, but that's all I can give you. But what I can do is I can help you find the things that you need to find in order to represent yourself on your case. And because I am a paralegal legally in the state of Alabama, I am legally a paralegal, I actually can help you with the editing of any documents that you write, so that they can be sent in if you choose to, or filed, should you choose to represent yourself and create your own motions. And I will do all of that. I will do every bit of that.
Some of that too, that if that was truly challenged, because under that, even under your Miranda, it's not you have a right to an attorney, it's you have a right to counsel.
Yes.
That is something that some of the backdoor deals and everything else that's happened, that if those are ever really truly constitutionally challenged, even all the way up to SCOTUS, you can get advice from anybody you want. But once again, the understanding is that the basic average person had at least a basic comprehension of how the government worked, how the courts worked, and how those were things. That's why pro se was put in there. Technically, when you had to have an attorney or a lawyer present was because you didn't have that knowledge, of those laws or anything else. But, understanding also that statutes and codes and everything else are not laws. That's the other thing that's very important, that, these states have come along and said, well, this is part of this and this is part of that. One of the things that we've dug up, and you guys need to listen real quick, I don't know what state you're in, but please contact the show, and I'm going to challenge you to do something. I want you to go, and there's a website. Vinny, why don't you give Darren that website to put up on the web on the bottom of the screen here? That one for the used to be Dunn's report number. Let's look that up. What that does is it actually shows you that all of your counties, your organizations, and even your state has become incorporated and has a business number or a business license number to do business for incorporation. Somebody that missed this, and that's me going through the old books, the paper books, not just what's digital, in a lot of the law libraries, and some of the different reviews have just turned around, and there's actually early on in our country, it was already passed that a corporation cannot sit in judgment or rule over or perform in government. In other words, you're not supposed to profit from it. So if that's true, the very act of each and every state and county, your police departments, even Department of Human Services and everything else, if you're a corporate number, which by the proof that's on that particular website, they do have, they're operating illegally under government because they're not supposed to be a for-profit organization or have a business license, because that's corporations. In other words, anything that's incorporated or has a business license number is not allowed to do anything with government. They're supposed to be two separate things. We've crossed that line. That was something that Darren and I had gone down the rabbit hole, but we wanted to share this with you guys here. I want you to look up your state and your Department of Human Services, and even your Children's Services, even your county's child support system, all have a FEIN number and a DUNS number. They are incorporated. They are illegally operating. What does that mean? That means all these cases they've been handling since they've been incorporated aren't even legit cases, all the way even up to murder cases. They're not supposed to be handling them once they're incorporated. It's illegal. But we don't look into half of these things. There's no accountability thing. That the biggest problem we have, I think, that you see down there, and I've read through, trust me, I read through all 50 states of their handbooks, their policies, procedures, and everything else that we ended up we're turning into evidence against probably going to be one of the largest federal cases in the country. Due to the fact that it includes treason. It's actually printed in there in a lot of those places. We have a right to violate your constitutional rights. And especially with the most recent ruling after COVID-19 by SCOTUS, for all these governors and everything else that wanted to lock everything down, said under no circumstances is the Constitution or your constitutional rights ever suspended unless this country ceases to exist. Then why is our state elected and appointed officials, I'm not going to call it, that are representing us in government, have incorporated, made themselves a job and a cush, and then robbing us? You're double dipping. As soon as you wanted to get into the profit margins, you lost the ability to, be in any form of government, state, federal, local, anything else. As soon as you incorporated, you weren't supposed to. We're a city or town. They're supposed to have their own codes. In other words, we're ordering from the city. If the business sector has forced them into doing that, there's a good possibility that we're going to put before the federal courts if we want to answer that question, and we want an answer. And that one may make it all in the notice.
Gunnar, you're actually, I do want to say something. You're right. Everything that you're saying is absolutely right. And I'll tell you a story in just a second about how I know this personally. But I do want to say this. A lot of the stuff you're talking about goes over so many parents' heads. And it kind of touches on the quote unquote sovereign law. So this is what I tell parents. You're absolutely right. I know a lot of the stuff you're talking about. I'm well versed in that area. One of the things, though, that I tell parents is do not use any of this on your court case for two reasons.
No, absolutely not.
Right. There's two reasons that I tell parents this. I don't go into you and I know the big reason why, but the two reasons I tell parents is, number one, you don't understand it. And if you go in there and you try to start screaming this stuff, you're going to sound like the idiots on TikTok who say, I don't need to drive. I don't have to have a license to drive, because they don't understand how that applies. That's the first thing. The second thing is these courts don't recognize it because they themselves don't understand it.
They don't have jurisdiction over it.
Correct. But they don't understand even some of the terminology that's used with this particular, this particular area. So what we have to do is, until we can get ourselves into federal court, we've got to play by their rules. We've got to beat them at their own game until we get it into federal court.
But the particulars, we'll give you an example of the case. This is why one thing, and we've talked about this on a previous show, this is because of the Bar Association and attorneys. Because a lot of your family attorneys are only licensed in the state and not in federal court. So they're going to push you to spend money in a state court, when in all actuality, in the beginning of your case, if you've had a constitutional rights violation, that automatically changes the jurisdiction of your entire case to the upper court to address those higher issues first. And then the lower court is supposed to. But here's the failure in the system. One, your attorneys should know this. Okay, that's one. Number two, it is a requirement. The thing that pisses me off, This is a requirement for judges and magistrates to do, is to rush to the aid of the Constitution, is what it says. If you don't do so, you have committed war against the Constitution, treason. But these judges are not saying, hey, you just turn around and talked about illegal entry or questioning without permission or this or that. That's a change in jurisdiction. There's the problem with the state courts, is they're not doing their due diligence under the law to bump it up to the upper courts under justice to get the rules on the constitutional issues on everything, because it is the supreme law of the land, and every state's constitution has a place in their own constitution that takes and verifies that. So if you're not doing that, you're not only violating the Constitution of the United States of America, you're violating your own state's constitution by not defaulting to that. And a lot of their policies and codes that I don't understand, and a lot of this came down, and I'll repeat it again 1,000 times, was because of the Chevron doctrine. For the past 40 years, they have had the ability to self-proclaim themselves as specialists and get to pick and choose what laws and what rules apply to them. They were let off the leash. That no longer exists, and the repercussions are you're now going to have to clean up, and those are retroactive case files to go back and sue them. SEC versus Jarsky. Newer case, don't know if you're familiar with that. Turns around and it says it's a Seventh Amendment heaven case is what it is. It says as clearly as possible that if a judge or magistrate has the ability to impose, not the fact that they do, but have the power to impose civil penalties. Civil penalties, you can look those up as far as what they are. Those are court, we'll call them filing you in contempt. That means body, person, money, it doesn't matter. If it robs you of anything, that is called a civil penalty, a material penalty of your time or
termination of parents' rights is a civil penalty.
It is on that list right there. It says in that case law that it does require, because of the Constitution, to have a trial by jury, which means every person that's ever had a case with your kids with no jury, that's administrative law, and it says administrative or executive judges. It's specific, and those are all the state judges. You require a trial. If you haven't,
hey Darren, send me that case. Send me that case. Let me take a look at that. I haven't heard that one yet.
SEC versus Jarsky, Jarsky, and it just came out in I think 2022 or 2023. But you've got to remember too, there's no accountability with the lawyers, the judges, or anything else, or requirement to take so many hours a month or a year to review federal case law to make sure you're compliant with those constitutional things. If anything, if there's the point is, if there's any question about it. In other words, they're not even, and even with Chevron says, the judges and the magistrates don't get that luxury anymore. And that's the people that are sitting in those positions that are under Chevron, that have been practicing this for 20, 25 years under the Chevron doctrine and doing the changes and not following the Constitution. There's our biggest argument we've had. And the biggest thing with anything is they shouldn't exist. And here's the one reason why. What right do you have to come in and tell me, let alone break into my home, which you have all documented in all 50 states that you say you're allowed to do, and tell me what I'm doing is right or wrong on how I'm parenting, let alone to turn around and say, I live with my kid, you'll say 24/7. And if you have a special needs, as you brought out special needs kids, they take a lot of time. They can be very aggravating. They could have learning disability, autism, all over the spectrum of this. And you're telling me a snot-nosed kid that's 20 years old may have a baby if they're lucky. Most of them don't even have kids that are caseworkers. How the hell is somebody with no damn kids telling somebody that has kids and been raising kids and raised kids that you're doing something wrong? There's my problem. Who the fuck are you to tell me that you ain't got no kids? That's like that's a backseat driver that ain't behind the wheel and never sat behind the wheel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gunnar, I told you I was gonna tell you a little story about how I knew that this stuff was true. You were talking about the cities and the counties and such having a Duns and Bradstreet number, and one of the things that the Alabama Bar Association says, and there's a statement similar to this on every bar website that I've seen in every state that I've seen. It basically says that the attorney is licensed either for the private sector or the public sector.
Mm-hmm.
So the CPS attorney, the very first thing that you need to do when you get a case opened up in court against you is find out if that attorney is licensed to practice in the private sector or the public sector.
Mm-hmm.
So because CPS is a privatized business, that means that they have to have a license to practice in the private sector. If they do not, they themselves are committing a felony in practicing law without a license. I know this, and I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
In February of 2020, I stood in a courtroom and I had CPS argue that I needed to have a gag order placed against me because I was talking about my case. I argued that it was a constitutional violation of my First Amendment right to free speech. I never had a gag order placed on me. The judge declined it. But I did ask the judge, Your Honor, I would like to ask for the CPS attorney to please verify their ability to practice law in the public sector, because we are in a public court. We are not in a private sector.
Mm-hmm.
She did not have the proper licensing. This judge literally jumped off the bench, chased me down the hallway of the courthouse, and had me arrested. I spent the night in jail.
Wow.
Tim, I posted a link in the back room for you. Actually, two links. One
Awesome,
is the
thank
DUNS
you.
number. The one is the DUNS numbers, and then the other is what our humble man over here, Gunner, put together of all 50 states plus federal case law.
Okay, awesome, cool. But yeah, he had me arrested. He had me arrested. I spent the night in jail. The next day, of course, because I spent the night in jail, my vehicle stayed at the courthouse. The next day, after I left the jail, I went and got my car from the courthouse, and I walked right back in that courthouse. And the sheriff's deputy, who actually placed the handcuffs on me, looked at me and said, "You have some balls." I said, "Yes, sir, I certainly do. Is he in?" He said, "No, the judge isn't here today." Well, damn, I wanted to go to jail again. I found out about a year ago that I've got a.
You called the attorney out for practicing law and having the proper license?
Yep.
That's called
And because of that, I spent the night in jail.
That's a
Yes.
federal case.
Yes.
And unlawful imprisonment, the whole damn 9 yards.
Mhm.
Wow.
And I found out about a year ago that I have an FBI file, and that was, other than my children, that was the greatest accomplishment of my life. Is I've got about a 1-inch FBI file.
Welcome to the club. I already know
that's when you know that you're doing something right, when you're helping parents get their kids back, when you have the powers that be coming at you and putting you in jail and opening up an investigation file on you. Those are the kind of people that you need to be advocating for you. Those are the kind of people that you want in your corner.
Well, you know, the other issue is the reason they probably don't give me much shit is because I don't know if you have watched the show, but you know, I've got a pacemaker defibrillator trying to get on the heart transplant list. So what are you going to do? Put me in jail or kill me? I'm already got a death sentence. Yeah. I mean, the worst person you ever wanted to piss off was somebody with nothing to lose. Not even their
hello.
Nothing,
nice to meet you.
I mean, what are you going to do? I don't know if I've got 3 months, 6 months. It don't matter. I know I'm on a time ticker more than anybody else and more than aware. So that's the most dangerous thing. But at the same time, if you do come after me, now you look at abuse, medical abuse and everything else. And now you look at, wow, look, you're really putting somebody in that's looking to get a transplant. You're going to do this, you know, and what caused it and all this other stuff. And it comes up with it. I mean, there's, you know, that's why I always say there's always three sides, you know, there's three sides to every story. Yours, theirs, and what's the truth is. And it's somewhere in between. And that's what a lot of these judges have to understand. But when you've got this buddy fucking system of they upgrade even within the own county, I personally don't think that a judge should take and even reside in the county that he takes and has jurisdiction over. That's
No.
power over the the people in your county. I mean, you have great influence directly to their life. I mean, that is a thing right there that they shouldn't come from that area. That way,
Right.
if something ever happens to them, it's over here. It's over in a different county, and a lot of times counties war with each other, so they don't like each other. Um, I mean, there's got to be a set of checks and balances or something, but you'll notice the difference. I love the fact that you pointed out the subcategories of the licensings. That there's a federal license or a federal license and a state license, and both have these same subcategories that she's talking about, private or public. Because private means that you can go into federal mediations. That's a private matter between two companies or two businesses within commerce under civil law. Um, and that is legal to do, like I said, but it keeps it in there. All of our other attorneys, even state stuff, they're not even supposed to be bothering private citizens other than what they do, other than people allow them to do. It's only under contract law. So if you don't have a contract with the state, and they have no right to force a contract down your throat, there's the other problem. And according to the funding that they get, well, here's the other problem. If you're not following these things, and that's going to be the biggest thing too, is that if you're not doing those, that disqualifies you from that Title IV funding if you're not following the federal guidelines and practicing, which means that money you've been obtaining it, fraudulently, or you're applying to things fraudulently. Well, you can't commit constitutional crimes and that's the other thing, trying to explain to the basic, and I believe that's a failure of public education. In other words, another program we the people did not take control of for ourselves. We're not educating. A high school graduate couldn't tell you how to write a check, balance a checkbook, change a flat tire, or even how to defend themselves in a court case. And most of the state stuff was under commercial law. They have no business dealing with a private citizen. Why? Because unless we're harming another person or damaging property, harming another person, that's a criminal act. Property is a civil act. Okay. And there could be criminal actions with it for that. That's fine. But when it comes down that you're attacking families and you're sending out pre-programmed Nazi, and this is the same thing under Germany, these same tactics and everything they use, go back and study what Hitler's Youth did and some of the other organizations and stuff that they had with the SS and so on, and some of the tactics they have. That is part of Project Paperclip that has bled over to the United States. And these are real things. We are paying for the decisions of some other people that weren't honest or didn't have the best intentions for our country, other than to tear it down or like I said, basically tear it down or somehow destroy it. It became a conversation in local news that I have to agree with. Why is it every time when you're an American or love the flag or love this country, you're considered a Republican? And if you're on the other side of the aisle, Democrats, you hate everything about this country. I need somebody to explain that to me, because we're all Americans. And why is it you hate the country so much that you want to go over to this and go over to that? And once again, you look at it because it's uneducated. I don't want to be a third world country. It's never worked. Socialism's never worked anywhere in the world. The only way socialism works is when everybody's honest. Well, when's everybody going to be honest? That's never going to happen with humans. I'm sorry. There's always going to be somebody out there planning, conniving, or doing something, which is why socialism or communism never works. Somebody gets greedy and somebody pays for it. That's exactly how that works. Yes, eugenics. 100%. So, but these are things you should have learned in high school. Why America is America, if anything. But
it used to be back in the days of the horse and carriage. There were two books that were kept in the home. One book was the Bible, and the other book was Black Law's Dictionary. Nothing else was really kept in the home, but those two books were a staple, just like flour and sugar and eggs were a staple. Those two books were. And why were they? Because the people argued their own cases.
And not
they only went to an attorney They only went to an attorney when they had anything to do with a business, when the the Grange or whoever it was that was supplying them with their weed, or they were trying to bring the railroad through. They wanted to go to war with them. That's when they got an attorney. But when it was Bob versus Sam fighting over their land, they just had a magistrate come in, and the magistrate listened to them, applied the law, and say, "This is what we need to do."
Which is all they're supposed to do is resolve those disputes. That's all they're supposed to do. But they got
Mhm.
greedy. Why? We want a fancy thing. This is our community and this and that, and our community is going to pay for it. Well, now we want extra laws and other things in place, and things that we all agree to by just living in the city. We all agree to it and this and that. But by doing that, you're basically watering down the Constitution, every bit of it, because it's never been the first thing, and it's always been the perverted thing. You don't believe me? If you haven't heard the story, go look at the mayor from Dalton, Illinois, over there in Thornton and Riverdale area. Oh, go follow that story. The mayor there ended up becoming mayor and used it like her personal trust fund, and now that city of Dalton is so backwards and millions of dollars in debt because she used it like her own. It takes one person, and without accountability, checks and balances, and everything else, which CPS does not have. Nor I have
Right.
problems with a lot of the states too, because you're not following the federal. You're not honoring the contract as part of the union of the united part of the states you signed. You're violating the Constitution, and you're making
And the
money.
biggest problem is with CPS is nobody seems to know who actually is supposed to have authority over CPS. You go to the state legislators and they're like, well, that's a federal thing because they get federal funding. You go to the federal legislators, no, that's a state thing because the state runs with that. But then, how is it a state thing? How is it a state thing when the state attorney general is their counsel? It is not a state thing if the state attorney general is their counsel. It is a federal thing.
I will tell you
You
that
can't.
it's been decided under case law called Rooker versus Fellman. Rooker versus Fellman is very clear on
Mhm.
what separates states in this, and it depends on how it's read in and how those case laws are applied to other cases and what a judge has
Right.
ruled. They
Yeah,
have
guys.
obviously ruled of that, as well as states talking about their sovereignty. I mean, with this and that, but the idea of the federal is to regulate the states to make sure that they're doing the right thing, which the number one thing is honoring the first contract they signed by becoming a state of the union, which is the
Mhm.
Constitution. If you're not doing that, then the federal government is supposed to come into these states and straighten it out, or declare martial law or anything in that particular state until new voting and everything else is taken over, because it's mass corruption. That's the beauty of the parts of our Constitution. We don't need Congress. We don't need this. All our voice has to say is you're fired. Enough people come up that are considered a majority for your state show up somewhere, say to a majority of the people show up to your state's capital and say, we are so many people strong and residents, you are now removed. They've done it. And Tennessee, especially the state I'm from, Tennessee has a history of it, to where they had corrupt government and the locals took, and with force, I'm talking shotguns. You guys go ahead and look that up about the town in Tennessee that they overtook the government, their local government, and squashed it. It's history.
They threaten us. They threatened Trump with inciting January 6th, inciting insurrection. That's he needs to go to jail for that. That's criminal action. No, it's not. No, actually, it's not. Insurrection, overthrowing your government, not only is it not a crime, it is actually an expectation of the Constitution. People need to stop being pussies. You're gonna have to get a backbone, or you're gonna have to deal with this bullshit.
Here's why. We have been conditioned to use the word government wrong. Government is we the people, us. Those are elected and appointed officials and actors. Okay?
Mhm.
That's all they are. It's a job. And you can be fired from any job. It doesn't matter what you hold. So what I'm telling you is we need to stop saying, well, our government, if it's you're right, our government's lazy, because we the people have been letting a certain select group of people do things, let alone vote a certain way, and not recalling these bastards and holding them accountable. Why? And this is why the mass distraction goes in with corporations, why they go to bed together. Because we can distract you. You're more worried about the Kardashians or the next color or the next album release or all these other different things, or who's winning the football game or the baseball game or whatever else you're finding. We have been distracted with entertainment. And then our schools do nothing better than to take and do that instead of giving you good time management skills, because now you want to pull both parents out of the home and not have any parents in the home and let the government raise your kids. To have those things of having something stable at home to teach those things, because the school's not going to. And that's where most people, you even have teachers come in and go, I spent more time raising these kids than their parents did. You realize you're a teacher and your television spend more time with your kids, you got a problem. I'm sorry. Why is CPS not focused on that? Turn that off, turn this off, do this, do that. No, they want to make sure you're in all the social programs. You go into public school?
Actually, I know I had one of the first families I helped, actually Child Protective Services, they were in the process of reunification, and she got her children's bedroom ready. And the social worker came in and said they were not going to give her children back because she did not have a TV in the children's bedroom. And she told them, we don't believe in TVs in the children's bedroom. We only want TVs in the living room. The social worker said, unless there's a TV in their bedroom, you cannot get these kids back.
Socialism, people.
That's exactly what they...
Yeah, I'm going to piss off, and you can share this around to all your people down there in Alabama and everywhere else. And this should get everybody going. Did you know CPS runs an illegal gun registry?
Okay, explain.
Oh, isn't that unconstitutional and illegal? Well, see, they have a home survey form that all 50 states have to fill out, right? Here's our checklist of questions. One of those questions is, do you have guns in the home? Right? All of that database is saved until the youngest child is of the age of 18. They are retaining documents that you have weapons in the home. They are working on a national database system, which means a national gun registry is what they're working on. There is more here with CPS and some of this deep stuff. You're not allowed to take and have a gun registry. Okay, that's illegal for a state to do that. It's supposed to be, are you able to do? And this was done, it was transferred, then it's destroyed. That weapon becomes that. Only until a shop or something takes in, it's supposed to do that. But the point is they're actually, imagine a police report, when you come up for a stoplight, they can tell whether or not you've got a gun or you have a gun in your home before they show up. Yet they've never seen the gun or you've never used the gun in a thing. Now that puts a sense of panic or an officer in a different position of feeling threatened for their lives. That's what they're trying to get to, and they're trying to integrate it within each state and or county within their state to actually share that information, going with a national database for all polices. Why is corporate America looking to put together a national registry of U.S. citizens to know whether or not you have a gun or not, that an officer can pull that up, a CPS worker that has no authority whatsoever to do those things without a subpoena? Why are you in my home? The point is my home is my sanctuary. As soon as you enter the home, I hate to tell you, it goes all the way from the lowest court, which is family court. It goes automatically to a federal courtroom. Why? You have federal matters. You had illegal entry. Were your children questioned on your private property when they entered? Yes. That's a 14th Amendment violation on it. We've got the case law for it, the federal case law. But they ignore it and they still practice this stuff. They're all criminals. Now, they softened you up on the Second Amendment over the past, since the 70s? Less guns, less guns, less guns? Here's a little secret. CPS worker enters your house and doesn't have a warrant or, an emergency, which their national protocol is to call the police. Did you call the police? No. You came into the house and kept going. Guess what? That's called breaking and entering, which means you get to use your Second Amendment right to defend it. If people were really aware of what they could do, that caseworker comes in your house with no court order or warrant, that's a gunshot. And there ain't a damn thing they can do about it because it was constitutionally protected. Why? Tell me what reason you're in my home. I didn't invite you in. Well, they were here doing an investigation. Get the warrant or the court order. You got one? Nope. Then that's considered breaking and entering. and a federal court will rule on that every single time. But most people don't know how to change jurisdiction, or your lawyer doesn't have the license to go into a federal court, so he's going to do the best he can in a state court, even though the jurisdiction, by the very nature of the case itself, should be in federal court. That's why they're getting away with shit. Let me break how many constitutional crimes and everything else. Well, let me get a change of jurisdiction. Why? Because you don't have jurisdiction over there. Well, the state's going to deny it. The state don't have a choice. As soon as you file the paper, am I right there, Darren? As soon as you file that paperwork, state don't get a say in the matter. They can tell you no all day long, but they'll snatch that case up.
It's going to take a little work, but yeah, the state's out of it. The state's done. Now it's up to federal. That's up to the federal courts after that.
So long as you
and Gunnar, you said that you have the right to protect your home.
Yeah.
Let's also make sure we clarify this, because I've got a couple of parents, including myself, that at the time of the case happened, we were actually in a hotel. So at the onset of the case, we were at a hotel. I've had a couple other parents that were hotels. That's when CPS from the county that the hotel was in, not actually their home, but the county that the hotel they were in, took the children. Now the UCCJEA says that they're required to hear things when it comes to child custody in the county in which the child has lived for the past 6 months. Well, here's the thing. CPS tries to say that they are allowed to enter the hotel room because that is not your home.
Yep.
But that is not how the law looks at it.
Correct.
Even though that is not your normal place of domicile, if you are using that place as shelter, you're utilizing it for shelter. You have a bathroom and you have a place to sleep.
Yep.
That is considered your domicile, and you are protected in that particular place, just like you are in the home that you own or rent.
Same thing goes to camping.
So
you can take it to camping rules. The same thing. Somebody invades your tent or anything else, you have a right to defend your property and everything. It's your property as well.
Yes.
Your livelihood, your property, your house. It includes anything you personally own. Which is why, a lot of those rulings, hey, can I search your car, or your dog's going to do this and that? Well, the big problem is the word that they don't want to get out either is the fact that these dogs, now that there are different strains of, we'll say the THCs, A, Bs, and Cs, and only one of them is considered chemically on a chemical basis illegal. The others are legal. How can a dog or a person differentiate the difference between THC, A, B, or C to say it's criminal? Now you got a problem. Let alone the testing methods they ended up finding that they were using by a burn-off method. Come to find out from newer technology and everything else, they can't. There's only one major chemical test, and the cost of it is just ungodly. So they're still making money on it because people don't know how to quote that case or anything else, or challenge it and say, I dare you to prove that upon the initial arrest or his suspicion. And here's the other problem that they're doing wrong. No traffic stop ever warrants. There's another federal case law, an arrest. You're not supposed to be arrested for anything that you like that for a traffic stop. That's even, those other things you can have criminal, but unless there's criminal murder, and there's case law that is not being followed because of, once again, and it goes deep. The amount of damage Chevron did, if you really start peeling that onion, it's going to hurt because it affects everything.
Lady P, you asked if you can bring a child welfare case to federal court. Child welfare on its own, no, because the states have been given the authority by the federal government to deal with the child welfare part of it.
Yes.
What we're talking about bringing to federal court is not the custody of a child. It is the underlying things which allowed them to be able to, or gave them the ability to be able to take your child. They broke into your home and they took your child. They violated your constitutional right. They gagged you, even though the First Amendment says they're not allowed to. That brings it into the federal court. It's not the actual child welfare part of it. It's the other details of the case which made it to where they were physically able to take your children from you.
You can even file if there is a federal code or statute, such as CPS, Department of Human Services, Child and Family Services Division, under the federal level. That means for them to take and receive not only the federal money, but for the fact for them to even exist, they must follow those guidelines, including the Constitution. It's already been ruled on. The problem is the people just don't know how to fight to keep them accountable because they're draining your money in the lower courts or state courts with this, that, and you have an incompetent attorney due to the fact you have, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to be very clear why, because he doesn't have a federal license. In your case, almost 99% of the cases with CPS is involved has a federal aspect to it, or a constitutional or federal law aspect to it, which must be the lower courts do not have the authority to do that. By doing so or passing over, can you bring it up in your lower case? Yes, I have a Fourth Amendment right. And you make that judge turn around and say they don't deal with that matter there, or they don't have jurisdiction. That court has just admitted that court is now null and void, that it doesn't have jurisdiction, because that is an aspect of your case that needs to be addressed. That's why they go over it so fast, or they try to move so fast. Do not let them go fast. As soon as you have a constitutional rights violation, even if you get the thing where CPS has come in illegally, file that particular thing with the federal court, the case against them, everything else, and watch how quick it stops. Why? You're now going to court. I have your information, and I'm suing all of you because you broke into my home, and we're not going in it further. We're not going to court. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. I'll get a case number, but I'm not getting involved. Why? I'm suing the people involved. That's a conflict of interest. You cannot take and have somebody against you while you're suing them, because there's a conflict of interest. That means one case has to close before the other. In other words, the federal case would have to close before they would even proceed, but that doesn't mean they get to hold your children for hostage.
And that does not mean that the lower courts are going to abide by that. I actually have a case right now. Actually, Darren, you know this person, Melissa. She actually has a federal lawsuit against CPS, the CPS attorney, the judge, the foster parents attorney, the guardian ad litems that have been involved on the case. It is in federal court right now, and the lower court is still hearing the case to terminate her parental rights. And here's the other thing, Gunner. The foster parents of one, she's got 2 children in foster care. The foster parents of one of her children, the daughter was removed from these people about a year ago. They are suing. They've actually intervened in the case. They have filed to terminate her rights in this case. Yes, they have filed, and CPS doesn't want them. The CPS is saying we don't want them to have this child, but they have filed in court to terminate the mother's rights, piggybacking off of the CPS case to terminate her rights so that they can get the child. Yes, and it has been brought to the federal court.
Yeah, this is customized. Yeah. But
even with it being in the federal court, the lower court is still proceeding with the case.
And that's where they.
So just because you get it into federal court doesn't mean that the lower court's going to go, oh yeah, we know, we were wrong, we're sorry, here's the case, we'll leave you alone. No, they're going to continue to go after you, so that you have to pay the attorney to fight in federal court and pay the attorney to fight in state court, and they're hoping to bankrupt you in state court before federal court gets anywhere.
Yeah, which kind of pisses them off when you end up going pro se and representing yourself, because then it's just my time and my education. I can play with
exactly.
That's the way.
They don't like pro se parents.
Oh no, they hate it.
They don't like pro se. I had 12 judges recuse from my case because I was pro se. 12. I went 12 judges, 5 different counties. And they actually brought in the CPS attorney that they brought in against me. I spoke to several of the attorneys that I work with, and they told me that this man is their pinch hitter. This is the man that they bring in when they know their case is fucked and they're about to lose everything. Up against little old me. Yeah.
See, the biggest thing is too, people are so feared of lawyers and this that, but once you get into this realm with them, it's not that hard. It's
It's not.
really not. Because you can understand. I've even had attorneys now. You'll love this as a paralegal. You'll get a kick out of this, Kim. So I said something about SEC versus Jarsky, and I have an attorney come around because I had explained, listen, it has to do with this, this, and that. And this, he goes, that case has nothing to do with that. He says it has to do with the SEC and sanctions and all this other stuff. I said, you forget everything else it said. I said, did you forget Roe versus Wade didn't have a thing about abortion in it? It wasn't about that. But it was
Right.
how it was read in the summation that the judge wrote and the things that that judge wrote that become part of the case law that includes the train of thought, if you will.
Yep.
This is my thought process explained legally, logically, and everything else within there.
Mhm.
Which you don't
And that's
get
why it's also good if you have if states have statutory law that has been put into effect that the CPS attorney is trying to use against you, or CPS is trying to use against you, that your state legislators put into effect. Like, for example, Alabama in 2020 passed a law that stated that a judge can terminate a parent's rights based only on the relationship of the children to the foster parents. So if I want to argue against a judge using that to be able to terminate my rights, one of the best things for me to do is to go knock on that legislator's door, sit down with that person and say, tell me what you wanted to accomplish with this bill. What was your intent with this bill? Because if you can get them to tell you, and you can get them especially to put it in writing, you can take it to court. And when a judge says, well, this law says X, Y, and Z, you can say, objection, Your Honor. According to the lawmaker, and I quote, it means this, it was supposed to mean this, and this, and this. You are misinterpreting it. You can bring that out. And if you bring that out, you can establish case law with making sure that it is properly recorded as to what the intent of the bill was.
And Lady P, let me address the federal case. Can you get judicial things monetary right? Relief only. No, that is not always true. The federal court, the other thing that she was talking about when they don't follow that, there's a follow through on that. If a lower court doesn't follow the federal court's ruling, you have to file a, I'm trying to think of it, a contempt of court. In other words, you're going to file
a motion to show cause.
Yeah.
A motion to show cause is what it's called. A motion to show cause, what that is, it is actually going before the judge and it's saying, Judge, they did not do what they were ordered to do. Can you please demand that they explain why they didn't do it? They have to have a damn good reason for not doing it. And if they don't have a good enough reason, then you look at that judge and you say, Your Honor, I move for contempt. So that the judge then has the authority to hold them in contempt. You do not file for contempt. Holy shit. You do not file for the vacuum started up, Darren. It scared the hell out of me. I'm in the house by myself and all of a sudden this thing started moving and singing behind me. But yeah, you have to have them show cause first. That's the first step before you get to contempt.
And understand too, a lot of that stuff, especially with constitutional rights issues and stuff like that, if you're talking a Fourth Amendment violation of coming in, and you're quoting in the federal does, and you're asking them, does in this particular case, how you ask the question, don't be specific, you're general. Does any government representative, elected or appointed representative or actor or official, have the ability to enter my home without a warrant or a court order from a judge with a first person's perspective or point of view? In other words, you have to have witness testimony to get that warrant. Personal thing, not hearsay. An anonymous call has already been judged on the fact, and you reiterate what you know about the law in these filings and say, does anybody from the government, of any government whatsoever, representative, have the right to come into my home without those things? And the federal court is going to basically tell you the same thing off of the case law. You can even quote the case law. Your Honor, from what I understand of this particular case law, it's already been ruled, and this was a case that involved not only a caseworker, but it also involved a police officer, and it was pretty well established and reiterated under previous case law, quoting other. I mean, the judge was quoting previous case law to say this has been well established. Stay the fuck out of the home, basically, is what it was saying, and went on to personally, in that case, he personally chastised both the officer and the caseworker of why would you even consider to go into anybody's home for anybody's reason? There's not. That's their sanctity. It's their constitutional right. What if I came in at any time, I break into your home and I just snatch your kid for no reason? In the middle, you're happy, everything's good, everything, and all of a sudden, for no reason, because your neighbor's mad, call in. Now we're going to come in right in the middle, bust down your door in the middle of the night, take your kids in the middle of the night, no court order, no nothing, while you're making love to your significant other, and all of a sudden come snatch your kids. And them have the ability, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. Now what do you do? Because now the table's turned, and these are 20-year-olds, mainly 20-year-olds is what they've targeted, that don't have a fucking clue. And these are kids with a college education. Well, here's my second thing. Why are you not suing the damn colleges for properly educating people on their constitutional right? Is that not a thing of higher learning and you're dealing with the public or government services? Why aren't you getting that certification or anything else that you don't? Where's the checks and balances?
Or why not sue the colleges that are graduating these students from social work courses and telling them that this is how you're supposed to do it? Have y'all ever read any of those books that they actually give, the child welfare books that they give to these social work students, and the bullshit that's in there?
Hey, Darren, isn't that on our list to go through after all these others, is to actually go through and sue all the colleges for not training them about constitutional rights with it for social work?
I don't know if we
can take a Fourth Amendment class. Under no circumstances are you to enter anybody's home. You're to invite them to you. You ever wonder why a cop can't take and question you on your own property? They ask you to go downtown because it's not legal.
Because in their house they can do what they want. They don't need their permission, your permission, to question you. In your house they do. But CPS does say this. They say that they are required by law. Every state has made it a legal requirement that if CPS gets a call, they are required to investigate that call. Here is your response to that. Your response to that should be, I do not contract with you, so I do not have to abide by those rules. You contract with the state, so you have to investigate, but I don't have to cooperate with that investigation.
Well, your investigation doesn't, or your want to come into my home for an investigation doesn't take and trump my constitutional rights to tell you to piss off. There's the
You already said too much, Gunner, if you said that much. You know that the only place the police station has jurisdiction is the police station and the town hall?
Correct.
Other than that, they have to be
in their vehicles, because they are technically owned by the corporation that is the police department.
Yeah, but the taxpayers.
I mean, granted, it is the taxpayers' money, but it is titled under the ownership of.
But the beautiful thing is, as soon as you start going to the right courthouse and the right courtroom, presenting the right case law, you make all of it null and void. So now they have a bunch of employees with nothing to do because they can't legally do anything anymore because you were incorporated. You have nothing in government, including law enforcement. You can't give out a ticket. You can't arrest anybody. You are now null and void. I'm sorry. You did it to yourself. Self-inflicted pain.
And anytime, here's another thing that I found out. I found this out by accident. It had nothing to do with CPS. A couple of years back, I found out if a police jurisdiction is in the process of dealing with a lawsuit, if I file a lawsuit against them right now, they are not legally able to enforce any of their judicial orders or arrest anybody or ticket anybody or do any kind of anything that they would normally be able to do while they're under litigation.
Yep.
My ex-husband, about 12 years ago. He and his cousin went riding somewhere to go get some drugs for his cousin. And his cousin wanted to go pick up a couple of girls. Turned out that the girls there was a whole situation with the girls, but they had drugs on them. And all four got arrested. About 3 weeks after my ex-husband, his cousin, and the chicks were released, my ex-husband was supposed to go to court. He did not go to court. They were supposed to issue a warrant for his arrest. When they did not issue the warrant for his arrest, I asked why they did not do that. And they told me, we're under litigation at this point, where our hands are tied. We can't do anything. Anything. We can't even, if you call us because somebody's breaking into your home, we can't do anything. The only thing that we can do is if you have a medical emergency, we can respond to that. Not allowed to do anything when they're under litigation.
And this was my point. Now that you reiterate that, this is why I was telling everybody and where I was pushing, because that is 100% true. If you think CPS can fuck with you or do anything else when you file a federal suit, oh no. You go straight to that judge and they go automatically to jail by just you reporting.
They're supposed to.
Yes. So all you have to do is have a case number and then assigned to a judge. When you get the case number, you now have access to that judge to file things under immediate duress. In other words, Your Honor, I'm under immediate duress. I filed this and I'm being harassed and or arrested every other night or all this other stuff and this, that. No, they can't do shit. Why? Because you're being sued. So that's what I was trying to get across to everybody is you want to hold people accountable and nullify your particular thing. They can't do shit. Can't issue a ticket, can ride around. Now they're paying employees and collecting no revenue. That includes traffic tickets as well, people. You better listen to her. You can't issue a traffic violation if you file. So if one person from every city or every county, not every city because it goes by county, if the county comes in and the city's involved, you can't do nothing. There's lawsuits. They cannot fuck with you because it's considered witness intimidation or coercion. Because there is an open case against them. Until that case is closed, they can't do a damn thing. You can speed right in front of them, and there ain't a damn thing they can do.
Now, this case was actually against the city. Not against the county. It was against the city. So the city was not able to do anything at all. The county could, but the city was not allowed. But if the county is being sued, then the city's jurisdiction, I mean, the city's abilities are extremely, extremely limited. They are limited to the point of the only thing that they're allowed to do is anything within their actual jurisdiction. And the only thing that's within the jurisdiction of a city is traffic or emergencies, as far as medical emergencies, things like that. If you call them because somebody's breaking into your house, they can come to your house and try to help protect you. But they can't arrest the person for breaking into your house because that is a county charge.
Absolutely.
Yep.
If everybody filed in every county of a couple cases, 4 or 5 cases per county, and every county across every state, you know what you just did? You just tied your appointed and elected officials and actors' hands to not do a damn thing. Now, how's that going to look when they're doing that and there's no money and then there's no income and then they have to adjust the budget and everything else? Well, you shouldn't have been breaking the law because now those people, why? Because we don't know how far it reaches. Part of it could be the whole department that has to be removed. There's times when there's doing things like unconstitutionality, and I'll tell you, they've got a loophole in a couple states, Tennessee being one of them. But there's other states that actually giving up your kids is considered a Class C felony. So when you have CPS coerce you into giving your kids up or they try to do something of those sorts, they'll catch you with a criminal fucking case and basically conspire with the district attorney to commit fucking criminal charges for child abandonment. That's bullshit. Coercion is a crime, but let alone a cop sitting there at the CPS places or CAC centers watching it happen and doing nothing. One of the requirements for an officer is you become the first-hand person and first responder, but you're also the witness. If you see a crime happening, you see what I'm saying? You now become the witness, the first person that's seen it. You're supposed to react that's federal statute for any type of law enforcement. If you see a crime actively being committed, you are supposed to take and step up and do the right thing, especially when you're on damn duty. But they are so brainwashed. I mean, there's some states that they're using police departments and sheriff's office to gain entry to the home illegally with that. And these are people, it's like, why won't you file? Well, my attorney, go to a federal court. Well, I don't know how, or I don't have the money. Then start studying it up, figuring it up, go pro se, and kick their ass. That's what they fear the most, is an educated citizen that can fight for themselves. That's what this country was founded on.
I had a friend of mine ran a Facebook page in the county that my case opened up in. It was called Shelby County Politics. And when I started advocating for myself on my case, I became very, very, very vocal on this page. And about 3 months after I joined this page, the man who ran the page contacted me, and he said, I wanted to talk to you. I see you posting, what have you. I wanted to kind of get to know who you were because I run the page. It's my page. Well, a few months later, after he and I became friends, he told me, he said, the real reason that I actually contacted you is because my page is the page that makes or breaks whoever's going to win the election. If I say don't vote for Bob, nobody votes for Bob. He said the reason I contacted you is because I had 2 of the judges in the county contact me and beg me to ban you from the page because you were going to cost them their position on the bench. They hate it when we speak out. They hate people who've got a big mouth.
They hate people that do the American thing. And that's the thing that they're not understanding with all these corrupt people. And unfortunately, most of them have shifted. They're on both sides of the aisle. I don't care what anybody says. But it's been for profit. It's about the value of a human life, $1 over a human life, because you want a cushy air-conditioned job with a higher education, sticking your nose in a book rather than some hard manual labor. I'm sorry. I just can't get over that. You're getting jobs and getting degrees and making this kind of income per year being an attorney, but you're really not even fighting for your clients if you can't even go to federal, because you're going to try and hope the judge does the right thing other than understanding a little bit more. It's like, dude, it's like some of these people, you need a class in jurisdiction, but some people know it and they exploit it. And they keep you in the family court cases. They keep you in the civil courts. They keep taking and fucking with your lives and everything else. When half of these people, if it wasn't, so many years ago, they would have just drug your ass out, showing up to their house and done shot you and buried you and never found you again. They came over and broke into my house, and there would have been a report, breaking and entering. Under no authority do you have that. Well, the judge didn't issue nothing. Well, I know the judge didn't issue nothing because one of the requirements under federal statute is you have to give me that warrant. Hand it to me. And it has to be a legal warrant with all the proper certification and stamps and everything else on it and signatures.
And a wet signature.
Yes,
it cannot be a digital signature. A digital signature is only valid for record keeping, not as an official document.
So all that photocopying you guys are seeing on your court orders and everything else, congratulations, in your federal case, you don't get to sue the judge for that. Why? Because those are considered illegal documents. That's called fraud.
Yep.
They have used
That's
fraud
called tampering with evidence.
Yeah. And you're talking about some serious stuff. And as soon as you guys start screaming in the right place, and I know a lot of you are missing your kids, I wish there was a way. And the only way to do it is to hold them accountable in these courts till we tear this system down one by one, because it shouldn't exist. You have people in your community and in your life. If you go through something, somebody somewhere, nobody is without, ever. If not, there's even people covering that if you need help or something that's going on. The problem is we want to point out all of our mistakes and punish people for stuff. We don't want to offer them no damn help to take and get out of the situation they're in. You think the economy, hey, we can't afford to pay the bills, we can't do this. I don't run the economy. My appointed elected officials do, but damn, it sure impacts me. Well, you have your point at the vote. No, I should have more than that, because if I'm poor and I'm not getting all these other things, or I don't have the opportunities to do those things to provide for my family, then you tell me that if I'm poor, you're just going to come steal my kids, because y'all better read that CPS stuff. You're now an unfit parent.
Yep.
We ever go through the Great Depression where everybody loses their home or the banks turn upside down and this and that? Guess what? The government's coming for your children, and that's no fucking lie, because they have the laws and everything else in place to come take them. Do you have a job? Do you have shelter? Do you have food? Do you have all the necessities, this and that? And the other problem, like Kim pointed out, you may have some rich kid that never had to struggle for a fucking meal in their life with a trust fund doing this shit. That ain't life. That ain't necessity. You don't know what necessity is. You're so out of touch with reality, it doesn't. Try video, you ought to send half of these social workers to fucking Haiti. Go see what it's like to live in a real fucking shithole. Live amongst the garbage and still drink the water. You take all those kids from there, and guess what? There's nobody to take them, because nobody wants them. But nobody wants to help the people. If you want people to be better and strong, that's the whole point of CPS is, they come under the flag of we're here for the family, or strong for the family, but the biggest evil that there is to the family is CPS itself. Here, let me take your kids and give them to somebody else, put them in foster care, and we'll pay them to take care of them. Why can't you just give that money to the family and give them a subsidy instead of a foster home at all? A foster home is supposed to be for kids that don't have family.
And the thing is we have these laws in each state that dictates what a mandated reporter is. The problem is I'm a mandated reporter. The problem is there's nothing about my being a mandated reporter that says what I'm supposed to report. It actually says if I think something is wrong, if I feel like my client is being abused, if I see something that makes me think that a child is being abused, I'm supposed to call. There is no clear-cut definition of these things. So that's where we get all these hospitals involved, where we have these ICU nurses that sit there and say, well, I think that CPS needs to come get your kid because you had fentanyl in your system when the baby was born. It doesn't matter that that's what we used to be able to stop your contractions when you were, 8 weeks premature, but we're going to go ahead and use that against you, and we're going to say that you're a drug addict.
I was the first person to expose that, because I had a nurse come to me when we were talking about how they were getting babies so easy and everything else, is they actually come out that they have, and they pay side money and bonuses for nurses for low-income families that can't this and that. Give them that epidural that has that medicine in there, and then take a drug screen right after. And now here's the other problem. Now, by the hospital doing that without your consent and not for medical necessity, that is considered illegal search and seizure under the 4th Amendment.
That actually is also considered assault and battery, because they've removed your blood from your body without your specific consent. That is a criminal action, not just a civil violation.
And listen, guys, and listen, if there's pregnant women on here, please hear me. Make sure you file the legal form with that. It's kind of like a living will, so on and so forth, of what your wishes and or rights you went to. In other words, I don't want to be put on a ventilator. I don't do this. You can even put on that living will, I do not give consent at any given time as a sound mind and body person, and that living will stand as a record or testament that no matter that they say this and that, you got to put the words that here's my living will. I'm sorry, and because the hospital will ask you upon admittance, do you have a living will that we need to respect some kind of legal aspect or anything else that's there? They will ask you that upon intake. This is the importance of the living will. It's like a cover your ass type thing. You can have quite a few different things, different documents and such, depending on how you're organized. As an individual, as a corporation, it just depends on, there's many aspects to it. But the point is how much easier would everybody's life be if the state just left everybody alone? No more of this, no more of that. Unless I murdered somebody or tore somebody's shit up, broke into something, crimes. Do we really need as many as we do? We're in fear for terrorist organizations. Well, let's just bump up our police force or turn them into tactical teams and this and that. Well, what happened to a blade, behind every blade of grass, there was a gun to where we supported our own citizens to defend themselves, which made us the most fearful country in the world. I don't care where I land or parachute anywhere in America. I know I'm screwed. I sure as hell don't. I mean, if I want to take over something, you're going to start in a big city like Chicago or in the state. You're going to get a lot of people real quick, a high body count and everything else, which is why they target high population areas. Don't know that. The idea is impact and shock and awe. They're not going to go take over Granger County that's nothing but farmland and maybe so many families in that particular county with a co-op store, a Walmart, and maybe a Piggly Wiggly. That's not their high target value. The family. I mean, when we had stuff of farms and everything else, and even going back to what you were talking about riots, individuals, a lot of early Americans had to for business. Why? They were in the business of selling their products as farmers. So they knew the line between business and personal, of this and that. And here's the other thing. You're sitting there beating the hell out of somebody, this and that. If both sides turn around and say, hey, none of the cops' business, nobody's pressing charges, there ain't a damn thing a cop can do. You can work it out amongst you like you.
Lady P, I disagree with you on that. It is, in very, very, very many cases, it is medically necessary for a woman to have a baby in the hospital. The problem is that women are not protecting themselves when they go into the hospital, and they are not protecting themselves when they take their children out of the hospital. They are signing documents that they don't understand what they mean. They're not walking in there with this clear advance directive as to what they want, what they're going to allow, what they're okay with. They're not going in there with that. They're just going in there and saying, hey, here I am, do what you want to me. Do what you want with my child. They're not saying, I do not want my child to have the vitamin K vaccine, which has actually been proven to cause minor strokes, which ends up being blamed on me as shaken baby syndrome. They don't know that you do not fill out that birth certificate information, because that actually is a fraudulent document. They don't know that because they don't read it, because even if they did read it, they don't understand what it means. The problem is not going in and making sure that you're safe in giving birth to your child. It is making sure that your legal interests and your child's legal interests are not you're not making sure they're covered before you walk in those doors. Because the moment you walk in those doors, you are giving implied consent to the hospital to treat you as they see medically necessary. Without those documents, they are going to end up, if you try to sue them, they are going to end up in about 90% of the procedures, the things that they do with you, they are going to be let off under what's called, what is it called? Angel of Mercy. The Angel of Mercy statute. If we didn't do these things, they would have died. If we didn't do these things, more negative would have happened to them.
With
so
a living will, a living will can cure all this up. So there is more to having a baby than just showing up to the hospital and doing this. One, make sure your living will is in place. Number two, make sure you have a jar or something of dirt or soil from your property. And as soon as that child comes up, before the nurses, and you have a legal right, they can check them, but are not to touch their feet. You can give that instruction and make sure that child touches soil, and you have a documentation of it. Why? Because when they land their feet on paper, that is considered onboarding them into the system. You are now property. When you put your foot on American soil, I verify this is U.S. American soil out of my thing. I am here. This is my testimony. And you record it, and you put that baby's feet or just 1 foot on those particular things. Guess what? That child's no longer part of the system. It's now a living person, and they can't. because you've put your foot on soil. There's a lot of tricks they've used, legal tricks, even in hospitals, to entrap you to do those things. Hospitals in themselves are not all bad. There are certain things. Let's put it this way: evil is going to exist as long as man exists. There's no possibility of it not. Okay. We are just to do our best to not only, the best thing to do is educate, one, as preventative for anything. Number two is accountability. And number three is when everything else goes haywire and you cross that line, that's when legal gets involved. That's why families were so important. Because when you got out of line, it was your father-in-law, your father, your brother, your uncle, somebody, you done messed up and word got back to family. You got dealt with internally. There was no going there because you done got beatings to hold you accountable. But now we have no accountability because we're all isolated due to COVID-19.
And family was so important to the point of back in the days of the horse and buggy, when it was time to harvest the crop, kids would take off of school for 3, 4, 5 weeks so they could stay home and help with the harvest. School was a secondary priority. But now you can't, you're not allowed.
So well, yeah, religions as well. Understand, everything was around the family in that harvest because that was their food. You have got to understand that. There was respect for what was coming out of that ground. Why? Because those churches depended on a good harvest to can or do anything else, because that's how they lived. They didn't have money. Oh, well, now we can exchange money. Maybe we shouldn't allow them to have money. Maybe we should be giving them just goods enough to survive on their basic necessities and become true servants. Maybe the same should be done for our elected appointed officials. Maybe we just provide or cover the basics, and after that, the rest is on you.
I mean, they need to be treated like employees. That's all they are. They are employees, and people don't understand that. When think about it. These men and women, they get up on the TV and they say, I will do this and I will do that if you elect me, That's a job application. That is a goddamn job application. They are asking you to give them a job. So tell them to either do their damn job or get the fuck out. They're fired.
Okay. So let's discuss that a little bit. So hence you have things campaigning. These are my this and that. What does that got to do with your track record? What does that have to do with here's your votes and this contained this and that, and this is how you voted on those things? Where is there an accountability thing other than polished turd and show me the sunshine? Show me the proof. Show me the evidence. What did you do in school? How did you do in school? Did you test well? Did you do better at things? Did you excel in this certain area with this, that? Okay, great. But why are we having people, even with elected appointed officials, getting to things, if they get in there right and have the right degree and everything, let me sit on a finance committee and be able to trade on the open stock market at the same time and benefit from it. How many of these elected appointed officials that have done that both state and federally, of not lifted a finger, college education, not done a damn thing, and in control of the thing like they're in control of the damn money because they're voting for the things. Hey, I'm gonna take and pass a law that's definitely going to affect all these stocks. Well, let me go ahead and jump on this one because this one's I got a buddy over here that understands and interprets stocks, that if we pass this law, this is the effect on the stock market. Where do I need to invest? And they can do it. And that's not just federally. Your senators and congressmen, that's your state level people. I mean, you've got
honestly, we really need to start suing these lawmakers or these politicians who've gotten into office and they said they were going to do A, B, and C, and they did the exact opposite. When we elected them into office, that is an implied contract with them. If they said, if you give me this job, I will do this.
Exactly.
Do what?
When do you have a politician ever want or get in touch with you about anything or sharing information as they want to be elected? Other than that, you never hear anything about how they voted. Here's my score sheet. These were the topics. These are the websites to go look at the bills we passed, how we voted, this and that. Where is that? I mean, this age of information, we should have all of that at our fingertips to say, even put into even somebody else to go beyond on the program. Hey, these are my views or my things. what person voted to help benefit my views or things that represent me the best. And those are the way I'm going to vote. Instead, you're going down to a 50-50 two-party system rather than, and once again, I'm going to quote George Washington on this all day long. We should never have done in political parties. Why? Because we should be taking and electing and appointing our officials and representatives based off the character of the person rather than who they are buddy with, so to speak.
Right.
Who they have,
Yep.
who they have association with. It's not about buddy
I
buddy.
think we
It's a measure of them.
I think we need to start suing them. I think we need to go after them individually for when these politicians say, I will do A, B, and C if you elect me, and then they do the opposite. We have got an implied contract with them.
Yes.
If we want to hold them accountable, let's do it. Let's take them to court. Let's sue the hell out of them and say you violated the contract. This is a contract violation, and I'm suing you for monetary damages for such.
I'm going to go one step beyond it. And as soon as you cross the line of that constitution of treason, because you're doing it as an appointed official, that goes before a military tribunal and they get to decide. But understand this, you then have no rights because you were found of this. And that's where it needs to stop. I believe public execution should come back for these people for treason for the things they're doing, especially the things with children. Absolutely. I believe it should be put on there. And this is what happens to people that steal children and do things illegal and fuck with families. They're executed.
Yep.
And I don't give a shit whether it's, well, your definition of family, it's mom. I don't give a shit what your family looks like. So long as there is peace, love, and you're preparing your kids to live in a world without you and preparing them for adulthood to go out and live in this world, work in this world, and coexist in this world with the rest of us without saying,
and be a positive contributing member of society, and every person in that family is there because they want to be there, not because they're forced to be.
Yeah. But see, we're dealing with so many different things, but now the other thing that we've had against us, Kim, now that's coming out, and I've known about it for a while, is what about the poisons in our food that has chemically and hormonally changed us over the past 40, 50 years that is now we're dealing with the side effects of all those chemicals rather than natural foods of no matter what it is, it's not good for the body. And we're seeing the long-term effects of things like obesity and cancers and this and that, which is why we're the most over-medicated country in the world. And our food can't even be sold in other countries. It's illegal. I mean, that's how it is. So why can't we
actually you can't even, not only can it not be sold in other countries, but if you have a friend that lives over in France or lives over in England and they say, hey, will you send me a pack of Oreos, it will be stopped at customs and it will be detained. They will keep they will keep the Oreos because they came in from the United States.
That is true. The only way that you can do it legally is under the military and or under ambassadorship. If you're there.
Correct.
And because those areas that they reside in, such as military bases, so on and so forth, are considered American soil.
Yep.
So just for a disclaimer there, we try to cover all bases as we can.
Yep.
But yeah,
absolutely right.
I just think a lot of this is just, we've been so entertained with everything so much that our whole world, once you become an adult, it hits you so hard because you're really not prepared. And a lot of us didn't have a lot of parents that took the time to educate you. Why? Because they were so busy working or doing this or doing that, or they were just happy with some of them, we'll say our parents, because their parents were World War II and Great Depression babies, those type of things. So it was nice to have things, but they were packed. All of a sudden, the hoarders, they're pack rats. No, they knew that someday it may fall again. If you don't believe me, it doesn't. I had this conversation with my ex-wife, and it comes down to this: is why do you stockpile some of these things here? I always like to have at least 6 months worth of stuff kind of stockpiled just to get through, just in case. It was just always a habit that I had, learned from my grandfather going through the Great Depression and everything. He says you never know when things are going to fall apart. And so you need to be prepared the best you can, have these things ready, because one day there may not be. And my ex-wife, you say the grocery store will never go away. There's never going to be a problem with supply. It's always there. Like We've become so comfortable with these amenities. They're not necessities,
But
people.
we've already gotten into the point that the grocery store isn't always there, because what happens when there's a power outage? What happens when there's a power outage? I'm sorry, we can't sell you anything. Number one, the registers don't work, and the refrigerators and the freezers don't work, so the food's spoiled. So how exactly are you going to get that? No, I understand in a situation where all hell's broke loose and we've got riots or martial law or something, nobody's going to care about that. But in normal situations where it's a semi-civilized society, people are going to be going, well, I can't come in because I can't give you money. They're going to respect that. So no, we don't have grocery stores all the time.
No. And the other connection too that we say that won't happen or doesn't happen all the time is, guys, the amount of psychological damage that CPS leaves behind is detrimental. Yes, you will have PTSD dealing with them. But one thing I don't think people really wrap around their head is just the impact of just them showing up and doing what they do causes so much psychological damage to everyone in that family. And somebody could turn, well, we've had a good report. We have a good, hey, I've talked to those families that are those sunshine families that here's a successful case in our county or this and that in counties across this country. And every single one of them will turn around and say it was actually a plea deal that had them going on the better side, or their lawyer took and recommended that they take and be part of the success story because it would be better for them in their case. That is called fucking, I'm sorry, that's disgusting. Go ahead.
I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
This is Clifton Christopher Buchanan Jr., my best friend. Last year, October 25th, just 2 days before his birthday, he shot himself because of Child Protective Services, because they took his 5 beautiful daughters away from him.
Yes.
And the reason they took his children away from him is because, and I quote, a man cannot be a single father to 5 girls. His wife died 6 weeks after she gave birth to their youngest daughter. She also committed suicide. And Child Protective Services murdered my friend because they took his children from him and charged him with custodial interference. They never had possession of his children, but they went to the sheriff's department and they told the sheriff's department that they had physical possession of his children and that he came and took them off of a visit. Even with the court document, they went to court 2.5 weeks after he left the state with his children and filed for custody of his children. 8 minutes elapsed from the moment that they filed for custody of his children and the judge ordered it. 8 minutes. And because of that, this man right here is now dead. And his 5 beautiful daughters, Madison, Aaliyah, Lacey, Hope, and Grace, his 5 daughters now are orphans. Both of their parents are dead because Child Protective Services saw 5 blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girls.
There it is.
Which actually, and we actually did a poll on this. In Alabama, 75% of children who are taken are blonde-haired, blue-eyed children. He had 5 blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girls, and that's what CPS wanted. And now we have 5 blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girls who have no father and no mother because they're worth more money than his life was.
Every time. Every time, guys.
It destroyed him. It destroyed him. And
because of the laws that are there today that we don't have, or people don't realize they have the ability, had that man realized it was all that, to be honest, his life isn't the one that should have been taken, in my opinion. Should have been those that took and kidnapped every single one of them, because that is a criminal offense. and they had no jurisdiction, no paperwork or anything else, and they can go back and look at it. But for them to railroad somebody like that, absolutely, they should be hung for murder, in my opinion.
And he actually, so the way that Chris and I met was because right after his wife killed herself, they came after him to get his kids. And he found me, and I was able to keep them from taking his kids the first time. We were able to use one of the biggest tools, and do not use this at all unless you've spoke to somebody that knows how to do it, because you will screw yourself. But we were able to use a cease and desist to get them to leave him alone, and left him and his kids alone for almost 3 years because of this cease and desist. We were able to get it. They came, they opened up an investigation, and they tried to put him and his children on a safety plan. He got with me. I got him started with a cease and desist against Child Protective Services. Let them know that if they continued to bother him, that he would file in federal court under USC 1983, violation of rights under color of law, and they left him the hell alone. But they still fucked with him, because what they did was they put in this food stamp system that he had lost custody of his children. So he wasn't able to get food stamps that he qualified for. And they said, well, you can get the food stamps if you can prove you have custody of your children. How are you supposed to prove you have custody of your children if you've never lost custody of your children?
I'm their father, yeah.
Yeah, it was a catch-22. So he wasn't able to get the food stamps and the Medicaid that his children were entitled and he qualified for, because CPS went in and put that in there to fuck with him, because they couldn't take the kids. They said, we're going to make sure we make your life hell.
And you know what happened back in the day? You and your family got together when that other family was in. That's called the Hatfield and McCoys, and we'll have that fight till the end of days. Leave my fucking kids alone. But once again, we've become soft because we don't think the citizen people are not willing to do those particular things. And let's listen. There's a reason it was said that every now and again, the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of tyrants and that of patriots. The reason we don't have tyrant blood is because most people today, they don't want to take and make that patriarch or that patriotic pledge to put their blood on there. Oh, that's just for the attorneys. Just for the military. This and that. Guess what? The fight's now at your home, and they want your fucking kids. So now you have a right to. I guarantee you start hearing across the day. We'll call it, in the next week or something. Some people realize what their Second Amendment is, and all of a sudden, bam, 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 and all of a sudden they file for federal jurisdiction, breaking and entering, no court order, no nothing. The state ain't going to have a leg to stand on, and they're going to get sued because one of their caseworkers got sued or killed in the line of duty, doing what the state told them to do, which was violate a constitutional rights. These caseworkers need to wake up, because to be honest, if you follow the law, well, my state's going to convict me. No, it's not, because your state court doesn't have jurisdiction over constitutional or federal matters. That's an automatic change of jurisdiction. And that federal court judge will turn around and tell you not guilty because he entered the home. It's up to the state then to prove. Where's your warrant? Where's court order? It's supposed to be evidence. That should be on evidence. If none of that is even in your case or evidence, guess what? That's also evidence. They didn't have it and they entered illegally. Y'all better take a look at the cases too, because you do have a federal case, whether you know it or not. If you look at the evidence that was presented in your case, and unless they took and presented a warrant or something signed for a judge in the evidence of your case trial, you have a Fourth Amendment violation, and it's null and void.
And if you go get your case file, make sure, though, that you get a certified copy of it. Because what you're asking is you're asking the clerk to stamp it and sign it, saying that the documents that they are giving you is exactly what is in the file. and they are actually signing that under penalty of perjury.
Yep.
So if you find out that there's something else in that file, you can go after the court clerk as well. But here's the other thing. If you've got an open case and you go to try to get these records, if the court clerk says it's going to be a little while, do you want to come back and get it later? You say, no, ma'am, I will stay right here until you get it done. Because what they're doing is they're calling CPS. They're saying, hey, Mr. or Miss Worker, I've got the parent here who is trying to get a copy of their records. Would you like to come add or remove anything before I give it to them? But if you get a certified copy of that, and then the worker comes in, or then the CPS attorney comes in and they put something in there, you've got proof that the clerk has allowed them to tamper with evidence, and now the clerk has committed a federal crime.
Felony. But you got to make sure when you sue them, just don't sue them, people, when you're going to federal court. Make sure that when you sue, you go against their bond fully, and anything after that personally, it must be articulated. When you wear out their bond, means they can never serve in public anything ever again.
Yep.
They are strictly
and also
private sector.
Make sure when you sue in federal court that you sue Bob Jones, Sally Smith, John Johnson, everybody. And then you also put, but here's the other thing, you're also going to want to put, after you put your long list of who you're suing, you want to put one other thing. You want to put et al. Et period al.
That means you can take
what
an
that means
throughout the case. If something
that means is later on, if you discover there are other people that had a hand in this and you did not initially file them, you are legally allowed to add them as a party to the case. If you do not put that at all, then you will have to file another separate case against that person.
Correct. Keep that open end on it too, and this is very important in your federal suit, because some of the testimony you may end up receiving on that stand may take and direct you to somebody else, or adding another witness to turn around. Your Honor, at this time, because of this evidence that has been brought forth by this particular witness's testimony, Your Honor, I need to add somebody else to the witness list, to be called for the witness list, and go ahead and then issue that summons, for those particular things. And then they work it out on the schedule when they're supposed to be there, whether it's during the whole trial or just a certain day during the trial. Depends on how the judge manages their particular caseload, or how other assistant does. But what you're talking about is these courts are making money off of you and robbing you and keeping you in. They're keeping you poor. They're stealing money out of your mouth, your kid's mouth, your ability to ever have, let's put it this way, it's constitutional. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By you engaging in this particular thing, the very act of you doing it is completely against the Constitution. Why? You have interfered with my right to take and pursue a life here in this country for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If I get to the point my government has become so overwhelming with bullshit that I have to take my life, you have violated my absolute constitutional right of life. My right to liberty is to seek justice. If I can't seek justice, then I have the ability. This is why the Constitution was written. If I can't get an answer, I have the right under the Second Amendment to assemble those things and take up party to. But you have to learn how to articulate it of being on the legal side of doing things. And that has been the control of the narrative, is you're going to hear one side of the story, which is CPS's side. You're not going to hear the other side. Explain the bond to Lady P.
Okay, so Lady P, I actually what I'm doing here is I'm actually pulling up my bond. Right here is my bond. Okay, I have this bond. I am a licensed court officer of the court. I am a notary public in the state of Alabama. Now, in order to be a notary public or any other member of the court, with the exception of being a paralegal, A paralegal in Alabama, now in other states it's different because they have to have licenses. In Alabama, you do not have to have a license to be a paralegal, so it's different in Alabama. And there's a couple other states that you also don't have to have a license to be a paralegal. So those states that also you don't have to have a bond. But any state where you have to have a license to be an officer of the court, or you have to have a specific college education that is required by law in order to be able to be in that position, such as a court clerk, you are required to have a bond. Now, what a bond is, essentially, is an insurance policy. It allows you, if, let's just say that, as me as a notary, let's just say that John Johnson came to me and said, I want you to notarize these documents. So what a notary does is a notary sees the documents and it says John Johnson is asking for Sally Smith to pay him $1,000 for a car. And John Johnson is in front of me saying that I am selling this car to her for $1,000. I need to notarize the signature that he is putting on this paper saying that he's selling this document. What I am required by law to do is I am required to look at his legal identification, which is valid at the time. It can't be expired. I'm required to look at it and make sure that it matches the person sitting in front of me. At that point, I have to document the information of who the person is, and I have to put my stamp and my signature on the document saying that I verified that this person is John Johnson. Now, if later on a man comes and says, I'm John Johnson, you signed saying I said that I did this, but I didn't do this. I don't know who she is, and I didn't give her my car, but now she's got my car. John Johnson can sue me because I did this. If it turns out that it was Nathan Jones impersonating John Johnson, I have that insurance policy to protect me from the lawsuit against me, so that out of pocket I don't pay anything to settle with John Johnson. So what happens is my bond is, what was my bond? I think my bond was $25,000. Judges usually are upwards of $1 million.
Million plus, depending on where they sit.
Yeah, depending on depending on which court they're in. Yes. So a judge, his bond is basically the insurance policy that he has that is going to pay for his legal representation, paying for the settlement that whenever you sue him, it's going to pay for all of those things. Once that bond is tapped out, he has to start dipping in his own pocket.
Yep. It's like filing for a claim of your insurance policy, and the maximum amount that you can get out of it for total devastation for your house, say a tornado hit or this and that, or something took it, whatever it may be, arson, whatever, then your insurance policy will only pay you what the house is covered for. Not always, and it's not always equal to what you would have gotten market value. It's what you have it insured for. And the same goes for cars or anything else. That's what pays for lawsuits. It depends, Lady P, it depends. I'm going to state this. Your CPS workers, and this will vary from state to state, not every CPS is under direct of the state or state employees. Some are subcontractors, depends on how their contract is written. Others are whole businesses that are subcontracted. And those are in certain states in the sense that they subcontract all of that out because they don't want nothing to do with it. They figure the farther away they can do with it, we'll have a private entity or business take care of it, and we'll subcontract it out to the general public or a business that will handle all that on their end and just kind of work together. In other words, they have their own lawyers, their own thing, and they just work in conjunction with the power of the state behind them.
Right.
Not exactly the same
in
thing.
Other states, the actual attorney general is their head counsel.
Yeah. So
Now, here's the thing. Like I said, lady, if you are an officer of the court, you have to either have specific licensing or you have to have the type of education, a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, a Juris Doctorate, whatever, in order to hold that particular office. Now, with CPS, many of their social workers do not have social work licensing. So they are not directly covered under these policies. They are they're under what's called an umbrella. So what happens is they are basically the puppet for the person who is covered.
They're
And
scapegoating. Basically, if that worker does it, it gives the big boss and everything a liability to say, well, that was just that individual's problem and not our problem. And they
right.
work independently versus we work this as an office. Now, if you go back into their training and everything else to show that the state has made that part of their training to commit those crimes and everything else, now that's a whole different story. That's what they're fearing from us over here, Kim, is we have that evidence that all 50 states are actively paying state employees and subcontractors to commit constitutional violations under the cover of law, and it is part of their policies and procedures. And they're even informing the public that they have the right to do so, which is false advertisement and fraud.
Yep.
Using your taxpayer money, people. Wake up.
Yep. Using the money that you're supposed to get at retirement from the Social Security fund so that you don't have to work until you're 180 years old.
Well, not just that.
But
your property taxes, all your other taxes, taxes you pay for local taxes, all that tax money that gets all this fancy shit your city has that it really doesn't need to function, it's not really needed or functional. All you need is, if you want to take care of your own garbage or contract somebody else to do it or have private garbage. The problem is government's involved in too many businesses. That's why they were incorporated. That money.
But the other thing is with the social workers is the ones that do not have licenses. We want to sit there and go after them. These little 20-something-year-olds. What happens is CPS actually makes deals with the schools that have social work programs. And they go in at the last couple of semesters before the students graduate, and they tell them, look, it costs like $1,300 to get your social work license. But if you will come work for CPS for 1 year, you will contractually agree to give us 1 year of your life. We will pay for your social work license. Then they have those little 20-somethings go out and commit all these crimes for them because they don't have a license. Okay? Since they don't have a license yet,
Hitler's
since they don't,
Hitler's
you're right. So they have. You're exactly.
Tell me.
They have all these little kids go out. They have all these little kids and go out and commit these crimes. And because they don't have the license from the state, they can't be held to the same standard as their supervisor who is licensed. So here's the catch with this. Here's the catch. Now this just doesn't just work with CPS workers. This works with the police and everything. If you can get the CPS worker or you can get the officer that pulled you over, if you can get them to say, my supervisor told me to do this,
releases the
then
liability.
You can go after the person that does have the license, does have the bond.
Or if you have them like we have, the whole state actually trains you to do those things. That means everybody from the top all the way to the bottom dealing with children has been actively conspiring to commit felonies and fraud against we the people and the government and using our own tax money to do it. That's called sedition. That's why treason and sedition will be charged for every single person when this takes and pops. You got to understand.
But that's why you want to try to get your worker. You want to try to get your worker to say, well, I have to ask my supervisor. Well, I have to get my supervisor to tell me, because they can't act without their supervisor's direct say-so. And when their supervisor, who is licensed, gives them the order to do it, then the supervisor, you are now getting in at the root of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting in at the root of the tree. You're now able to start poisoning that tree because you're going after the supervisor. And as soon as you go after the supervisor, well, the supervisor had to be authorized to give that order. Who authorized the supervisor to give that order? The supervisor's supervisor. And who gave them the authorization?
Darren,
So on up to the top.
now let me ask you this, Kim or Darren, chime back in here because we've got a question, and maybe Vinny's in here too. Where do some people take and go to see whether or not their caseworker is actually licensed?
The social work, there should be a website on each state. Each state has a social work licensing website.
Okay.
In Alabama, they actually passed a law in 2023 that says that a social worker no longer has to have a license in order to be a social worker in the state of Alabama.
Therefore, they're not considered an officer of the court. Therefore, they're not licensed or even legally able to do anything they're doing.
Exactly.
That's kind of a problem because without that authority under the federal guidelines and this and there, that disqualifies the state of Alabama to receive any federal funding whatsoever.
There you go.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
Welcome to Chevron. We can do what we want because we are what we are. And once again, who oversights us? Once again, you shouldn't exist. Because if there's not a crime, you're not supposed to come around. Yeah, but for the children, not your fucking problem. There we go.
Yep.
Darren's got it up here. ASWB is the website. In any state.
And when they passed that law in Alabama saying that a social worker didn't have to have a license, they also passed a law saying that a social worker has the ability to make psychiatric diagnoses. Before that, only a psychologist could actually diagnose you.
Once again, that's I've got a problem with that because that is a licensed thing. And you like to play the little card, and this is my thing to this. Your Honor, if you're accusing me or this court's accusing me of practicing without a license, how are they able to practice medicine without a license? That's a felony, a federal felony. So you're authorizing them to commit a federal felony. You see how far overboard this is going? With Chevron, we can do what we want and create what we want.
Yep.
Until they're held accountable in a federal court and everybody starts suing them and you start taking their money. That's why our big push and a lot of it for it was, guys, start filing in federal and doing this. Why? You will cripple them. You'll bring them to their knees because if they're all under investigation, their whole department or anything else, they can't. If the city's done, if the county's done, it's crippled. We can't. We don't have the ability. Now what? Now what are you going to do? Nothing.
Right.
You're not, the only thing that you can take and collect is hopefully you've got some property tax and live off some property tax and all that other stuff. And maybe they get a cut from the power company if they're in bed with the power company and own their own little power company for the city or, however it's done, or county or whatever, depends on how that's sorted out to make profits. But understand that you start cutting that stuff out to where they can't have court. And there's this thing that you can turn around, Your Honor. It doesn't have to be just your case. You realize once that's ordered, you can show up to the courthouse with a lawn chair and a cooler and go, no court today. Or not really so much no court today, but to realize whether or not they're practicing court or still doing beyond the thing, knowing it's been served. Because I guarantee you, once that federal judge turns around and goes, you can't take and practice anything. The lawsuit's on file. It's filed. You've been notified. You're no longer a cease and desist. And if you don't, then the judge may take an order of cease and desist. Hey, in case you didn't know, you ain't supposed to be doing shit. Then you show up to the courthouse today and you send a couple other people. Hey, I've gone to this witness. They've got it on their camera phone. Look, they're in here. They're in court. They're in here conducting business all day. They've got court all day. Look at that. Think how that federal judge, sanctions come down.
Tim, the sheriff's department is a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. Whoever told you that is a dumbass. You hire a paid private attorney. Private attorneys deal with civil stuff. The sheriff's department is the one that has to deal with criminal stuff. Perjury is a criminal act, not a civil act. They're just telling you that they don't care what is being done against you, and they are not going to uphold their oath, which is to protect and serve. They have no interest in protecting and serving you.
Uphold the Constitution. What you're talking about is a bunch of people that if you get together in your own communities and everything else, and you guys start talking in your own counties and holding these people accountable, and then you're waking everybody else up that a certain section of you are having your children robbed and this and that, and if it's happening to them, and then you educate them, go ahead and become poor, lose everything, or somebody sue you one time. They're going to come and get your kids. They're going to steal your children because you're poor. You realize?
Well, I had when I was giving birth to my youngest child.
You're going to love this one. You do realize once they are indicted, convicted, or anything of the felony thing, and there's federal criminal charges, Child Protective Services then has to go after their own and seize their own kids. You don't realize that until it's got a squawk order. They don't get that.
Yep. When I was in the hospital, my youngest son was born 8 weeks premature. I was in the hospital a week before he was born, trying to keep him from being born early.
Yeah.
We didn't have running water at the house because there was a field line that had bust, and we weren't sure where it was at. So we started digging, and we dug and dug and dug. Well, I'm pregnant, so there's not a whole lot that I can do as far as the digging, especially because the dirt that we had was really, really, really hard-packed Alabama red mud. And that stuff is almost, it's hard as hell. Me being pregnant, I can't do a whole lot of physical labor because I'm already having issues with complications with pregnancy. My husband worked full-time. He worked 5 days a week. He only had a little bit of time that he was able to work on the plumbing. I ended up going into the hospital while we still had no running water. It wasn't because we couldn't afford our water. It wasn't because we didn't have the ability to have water. It's that we didn't want to have a $600 water bill every month because it was running into the ground. The doctor at the hospital, or the nurse at the hospital, called Child Protective Services on me. This goes back to what I was talking about the mandated reporter thing. She called Child Protective Services on us because we didn't have running water at home. Not that we didn't have access to clean water. We had plenty of access to clean water.
Because I have to have running water or electricity.
I was actually very impressed at this particular point. I didn't understand anything about CPS at this particular time. I still was, under the brainwashing that they were there to help and protect. CPS worker came out and she said, you don't have running water. I see the big trench out in the yard. What's going on? I explained it to her, and I went in there and showed her the 60,000 gallons of water that we had in the kitchen, in the bathroom.
Right there, Kim, is the biggest problem. It's none of your fucking business.
Right. Well, no, she actually came in. She came in. She didn't come in. She didn't come in under the I'm here to take your kids. She came in to say, look, we got this call. We're concerned because we know you got a new baby. What can we do to help? She actually did what they were supposed to. I was floored. Yeah. And I came in and I was like, look, we've got plenty of water in the house. We've got all kinds of gallons of water in the house. We've got access to water. It's not that it's just, it will not come from our faucet at the moment. And she goes, well, I can't do anything about that because there's no law that says you can't have, that you have to have running water.
Right.
She said, we just need to make sure that you do have access to water. And if you don't, I need to help you be able to get access to it.
Right.
It was fantastic. And
guys, don't forget, the audience out there, you guys out there listening, make sure you hit the push and like and subscribe if you like what the show and the topics we're talking about today. That way you can get notifications and kind of keep up with the particular group of like when we go live. Even with some of our special guests, a lot of our back people take and try to advertise the best we can. We're working through a few little, we'll say, electronic issues, if you will, to where we've had some issues with some of the equipment not getting through for some of the podcasts, but we do the best we can with what we have. But just make sure you guys, if you like it, hit the like and follow. And also, Tim Bennett says he's looking for an attorney. I don't really think you really need an attorney, Tim. I think you need to really educate yourself on this and really take it pro se, because it's not that hard if you can get a hold of just a few basic concepts and go from there. Matter of fact, once again, Kim, do you want to take and repeat your group or how they can get in contact with you?
So my group is mainly for cases in Alabama. It's Parents Helping Children. I've got a Facebook page if you want to go on there, and you can mention the show and say that I've referred you. If you put that in there in the questions, I'll go ahead and let you come through. We're very, very, very big about vetting people that come in, because we want to make sure no CPS workers come through. If you come in, you say you saw me on the show, I want you to talk about one thing that I spoke about on the show. And if you put that in there and you say, Kim said, blah, 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 I will go ahead and put you through. Okay. But it's Parents Helping Children. And Tim, if you want to look me up on Facebook, it's Kim Page, Page. Message me. We can talk about, if you don't feel comfortable enough being pro se on this, I know an attorney that is a federal attorney, and he kicks ass. He loves to go up against courts, judges in the lower courts, and throw their ass into federal court. He absolutely loves it. And if you can't afford to do, if you don't think that you're capable of doing it pro se, I can get you in touch with him and he can help you. He's not cheap, but he is extremely knowledgeable and he likes to kick ass.
Well, guys, we're getting ready to wrap things up. It's getting a little bit late, guys. We Kim, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. Definitely get with Darren and let's get back on the schedule. Also, if you wouldn't care, shoot him your email. I'd like to touch base with you offside here just a little bit, maybe get a one-to-one meeting here and go over a few things with you, because we're looking at as much input as we can, especially with the big stuff that we're doing here and the big federal case that we're actually getting ready to hold them all accountable. Because, and yes, the thing that's going to scare the shit out of them, it's going to be pro se, and that's going to be the scariest thing. Thanks. Got that there, Kim. Guys, thank you again. Catch us again around the same time the next couple days here. Just follow the schedule that's there. Catch us on the Tip and Punisher show. Vinny on Saturdays with Vinny's version, and I believe Danielle's got a version out there as well. And guys, there's been little talks. Me and Darren have to have a conversation, but there's a possibility of the Gunner Show coming out here real soon. I know you guys will enjoy, because one of the beautiful things we love to do is piss people off. And Darren has said, Kim, I'm sorry I didn't know. Kim, welcome to the show, I've heard. Congratulations. We love to have you.
Yep, Darren and I've been talking about me doing my own show for a little bit, and it's time for us to get on the ball doing it.
Guys, I love working together with you guys. The idea is sharing information, loving our country, loving each other, helping each other. The thing that we need to learn how to do even better today is learn how to heal each other and stand up for those that are weak and can't for each other, and band together. Why? Because it's what they fear. Guys, welcome to We the People in America, and that is the Punisher Show. Thank you, guys.
Our men have fought for our freedoms, many women have too. Their blood spilled upon the ground. With the news, many frown. They paid a price that many won't pay. Now we are letting their cause fade away. The graves are being neglected by the actions of so many deceptive. The freedoms they fought for in every world war, conflict or mission, so many stayed behind.